watching it back every single time. Well, Tom Brady not only continues to write the record books with his 7th ring, but also the path that got him there. Brady went on the road to Washington, New Orleans, and Green Bay before reaching the big game. And including the Super Bowl, Brady defeated Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes, all former Super Bowl MVPs. So, Shannon, when you look at it that way, was this Brady's toughest road to a ring?
I don't believe so, Skip. I believe this probably was his easiest path for the simple fact, Skip, he brought it.
Easiest?
I believe,
okay,
and maybe Pro Football Focus, since they always want to analyze something, go back and look at it. I believe this is his most talented team Tom Brady's ever played on. Player for player, Skip, top to bottom. Offense, defense, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, DBs. I believe this is the most talented team Tom Brady's been on. And so, therefore, it's not the most difficult. Now, had he taken, say, the 2018 team, Skip, through this path, okay, no question. But, Skip, when you look at the talent level, and that's why I'm like a 3-point favorite. I mean, when you look at it player for player, I believe the Bucs are more talented. Yeah, I get it. He went through Brees, Rodgers, Mahomes, but Skip, he brought a heavyweight, the contenders with him. I mean, he had a team with him, and I believe this is his most talented football team that Tom Brady's been associated with. So for me, no. I still believe because of what he did in 2001, Skip, because it was only his first year starting. He started, week 3? Started week 3, because I think Bledsoe got hurt week 2 or week 3.
0-2, yep.
So he started week 3. Considering it was his first start and doing what he did and getting that because he beat the Raiders at home, then he goes on the road and beat a 13-3 Steelers team that
Although he made it about half of that game, Bledsoe had to finish.
Right. And then doing what he did in that game, because this is not the Tom Brady that we see now, Skip. It was not even close to that. And I don't think anybody thought in that game, watching that game, that he was going to turn out to be what he became.
Nope.
So for me, Skip, I'm going to say no, for the simple fact of what he brought along with him. The arsenal that he has at his disposal now is greater than he's had at any point in time, if you look at it offensively and defensively.
As usual, we see Tom Brady from a completely, utterly different perspective. I'm going to make the case this was the greatest run to a championship in sports history, given the degree of difficulty of taking over a team that went 7-9 a year ago. I give you the talent, but let's take apart the talent and see what happened this year.
Okay.
43 years old, 7-9 team, an organization known as the Succaneers because they had the worst winning percentage historically in all sports.
Right.
There's a pandemic. There's very little off-season, mostly virtual, mostly throwing to people in parks until the quarantine got you and the park ranger said you can't do that in this park anymore. 0 preseason games. A schedule that threw you into the fire against your arch rival, a team that became your nemesis in New Orleans, in game 1 at New Orleans. That was unfair and a predictable outcome. That team beat you on a Sunday night midseason when you were 6-2. It beat you 38-3 on that same turf that we watched the Super Bowl on. 38-3, and just went up and down the field on that loaded defense. They should have scored their first 6 times, but to your point, Jared Cook fumbled at the 2-yard line as they were going in for a touchdown that would have made it 6 possessions and 6 scores. And then, obviously, on that same field, Patrick Mahomes threw for 359 yards in the first half, 203 to Tyreek in the first quarter, 203 receiving yards by one receiver in the first quarter. Well, it was just wrong. And I didn't think that defense was going to be talented enough to rise back up to a level to carry them through the playoffs.
No, you didn't think they would be able to play to their talent level.
Yes.
They were talented. They just weren't playing to that level.
Although the secondary was just so young because you're 22 and 23 at safety.
24-year-olds.
And 2 24-year-olds on the corners. And I think they're all pretty good players, but I don't see a Pro Bowl player unless Antoine Winfield rises into Pro Bowl status. He might.
They'll start getting some, considering what they did in the Super Bowl, they'll start getting more looks now.
Okay. And yet, will they have? I think they need to go out and sign one of these Patrick Petersons or Richard Shermans or somebody to give them some veteran depth and savvy at corner that they can utilize. Okay, so they go against Taylor Heineke in game number 1 on the road at Washington. And as you know, he just goes up and down the field on this same defense that's loaded. And it scared me because Brady had a huge game against the then number 2 ranked on just yards allowed, number 2 ranked Washington defense that you said had one, at least a top 5 pass rush that you thought would cause him some problems, and it did not. His offensive line had gelled and risen up to a level that it could compete and at least have a standoff against that pass rush and give him enough time to torch their secondary, which was torchable. Okay, so that's the number 2 defense. Then they go to New Orleans against the team that had beaten them 38-3, and this is Drew Brees. It could be a swan song, but he has had Tom Brady's number, obviously, in many games. For the most part, he has won. He had won most of their matchups, and you do a number on them, and that was the defense. That was the first game the defense rose and shone, and you said, aha, that could work. And they forced 4 turnovers from Drew Brees, and yet that's the number 4 defense that Tom Brady is having to score against, and he scored. He closed the deal. He cashed.
I mean, but think about where he's getting the ball at.
Okay, but he cashed.
Yes.
He cashed when he had to cash. And then at Aaron Rodgers, at Lambeau, frozen tundra, that's the number 9 ranked defense. So that's 2 top 5 defenses and a top 10 defense that you have to face on the road against Aaron Rodgers, who talked the whole week about how he's in the biggest comfort zone he's ever been in. He feels healthier than he's ever felt, and he got his dream come true. Finally, a home field NFC championship game, and you know the rest of the story. Brady was magnificent in the first half, struggled a little bit in the third quarter because they lost both their safeties, and I thought Aaron Rodgers would just have his way.
Let me ask you a question, Skip. How does losing a safety affect Brady's play?
Okay, because he knows he's going to have to win a shootout in the second half because he thought Aaron Rodgers would be able to throw a big old party on his defense.
He wouldn't.
You lost Antoine Winfield, and then you lost Whitehead early in the third. So for the whole second half, you're playing without your 2 starting safeties against Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau.
Yeah.
Should have been his game, and you know what happened? Aaron had a bad fourth quarter, and they lived to tell.
Skip, you keep saying the Buccaneers are the worst team, but Skip, what were the Patriots before Brady? They were terrible franchise.
Well, but they had been to the to 2 Super Bowls before.
Tampa Bay had won a Super Bowl. Tampa Bay had gone to NFC Championship game. Yes, okay. Look at what was Golden State Warriors before Steph. We're not talking about the 1960s when they had Wilt, and when they go back to the 70s and they won with Al Adams and Rick Barry.
Okay.
So they were terrible. There was a 20-plus year stretch where they were terrible, but they got a level of talent. See, you can't just keep saying, well, they had a history. Look at the Golden State Warriors are not the same Warriors because they got Steph, Clay, and Draymond, even though Clay is hurt. Once you get a level of talent, you looking at them and the totality says, well, they've been historically bad. Look at the level of talent. We're going to be interested to see how many Buccaneers, I don't know, maybe they do it during the season, but how many Buccaneers make the top 100?
Okay.
That's going to be very interesting to see.
Top 100
NFL players.
Off this team?
Yes.
Going into next year?
Yes.
Okay. Well, guess how many Pro Bowlers they had? They had 1 as a backup. They had JPP as a backup. Nobody made it. Brady didn't make it. Neither the wideouts who were Pro Bowlers.
Well, I'm disappointed that Devin White didn't make it. I thought Devin White was a lock, but he's gonna probably be a lock moving forward.
Okay, so they win against Aaron Rodgers because they had beaten him down so badly in the regular season. I think it gave them enough faith they could go in there and compete with him, and they did.
Right.
And then they go up against the baby goat, Patrick Mahomes, and a defense and a coordinator that has had Brady's number, certainly in the Eli Super Bowl, the first one.
Right.
Okay, so to overcome the number 2, 4, and 9th ranked defenses and go Brees, Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes is outrageously great, especially when you're 43 with the team that went 7-9 a year ago. In your first go around with that team, you transform it into a Super Bowl champ. But it's impossibly great.
I give you a prime example. It's like Trent. Trent got to the Ravens. They were 8-8. They had the defense was intact. It was just getting the defense to play to the level consistently, game in and game out. Ray Lewis was there. Rod Woodson was there.
Okay.
Sarah Goose, all those guys were there. Now, okay, let's get a quarterback that understands is that if he doesn't turn the ball over, you get a guy that can make a play here or there. They brought me on as a free agent. They drafted Jamal in the first. Well, I think Jamal was 5th. We run the football. We play for the big play, but we turn it over to our defense. What Tom says, well, man, if I can get to 14, they're not going to let you get in the end zone. So that's what they do in the red zone. They slam the door in Green Bay. The Green Bay, we're not letting you in the end zone.
Okay.
What they do to Pat Mahomes? We let you get down here, but you're not getting up on the end zone.
Okay, but Tom Brady went 11-5 this year, good enough
Yes.
for a wild card.
Yes.
And many times that was in spite of the defense. It wasn't great all year long. There were many games when he just took the game over, like against the Chargers at home in an early game. They fell behind 24-7, and Herbert's just throwing rockets.
But what happened right before the half? The defense get a strip sack.
They did.
They force a fumble. Tom gets a touchdown. They come out the gate, boom, boom, and they win the ball game.
What happened in the second half? He threw for 250 yards,
Yes.
and here they came. Okay, so he was the biggest reason they got to 11-5, not the defense.
But Skip, I think the thing is that what we're overlooking is that the role that the defense played when they played these historical name quarterbacks, they were outstanding against Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees wasn't what we would like to see Drew play a little better, but he wasn't the same Drew Brees that we knew and loved. Aaron Rodgers was Aaron.